Based on his appearance yesterday with Spence Checketts, it's been a bit of a tumultuous road trip for Tony Jones. I felt like I needed to hop on a plane and go down to New Orleans and make sure my guy was okay and get him home all right. Are you okay?
I'm good, my guy. I'm good, man. I haven't gotten on the plane yet, but that just means that I can spend some time with you.
Okay, well, are you getting on? First of all, are you going to be able to get on the plane? Have you checked in? Do you have your boarding pass? Has everything been checked? Are you good to go?
Everything's been checked. I'm good to go. You know, the funny thing about it is, like, this is such a busy trip, such a busy month of trips. The NBA has the Jazz going all over the place. So we check in. So I come home tonight. I'm home for 3 days, and then I'm right back east on Saturday morning. And then, you know, we're back out east for another week.
Yeah, but that's your favorite trip next week. That New York-Washington swing is your favorite of the year. That's
going home, get mom's mac and cheese for a day. Then I get to go home. I get to go to Brooklyn. So that's great.
That'll be good. By the way, are you banned from Marriott's, or are you still on the list? Are you still? Or maybe have they forced you to stay in like Spring Hill Suites and Courtyards and things like that?
I'm not banned from Marriott's. My bank account is not as prosperous as it once was 6 days ago. Let's just put it that way.
I hear you. Well, be safe. Keep your wits about you. Hopefully you don't have a middle seat, and you'll be able to sleep for a couple of hours on your way home today.
Yeah, for sure.
So
what about last night?
So that's what I want to get to. Last night, Jazz got away with one last night, didn't they?
Do you think?
Come on, man. Come on. They called a timeout right in front of the official. He didn't acknowledge it. And then Rudy Gobert hammered the guy on the way to the basket.
Okay.
He hit his arm, Tony. I saw the replay on 7 different angles.
So, like I said on Twitter, it was a foul both ways. It was a foul on Rudy Gobert, and it was an offensive foul on Brandon Ingram. Ingram. So you can't hook in the NBA, and what Ingram did was even more egregious than a hook. He wrapped his arm around Gobert's waist. And basically pulled him to the floor. And Gobert got him. Gobert absolutely got his arm. So I don't know how you officiate that, because it was an obvious foul on Gobert and it was an obvious offensive foul on Brandon Ingram. So I don't know if you call that, if you don't call that. I'm interested to see what the last 2-minute report is going to be. And if you want to go and you want to say the Jazz got away with one, which is possible, because Ingram would have hit 2 free throws, they would have gone to overtime. And
right. There was no guarantee they win the game, but the game to me should have gone to overtime.
I would have given New Orleans the advantage in overtime because the Jazz were dead; they had no legs left. But if the Jazz did get away with one, then, you know, it does give them back the game that they should have won in Memphis when Solomon Hill fouled Donovan Mitchell, because that was an obvious foul, and that went uncalled.
Well, that's what I said earlier. It's an 82-game season. Calls balance out. Sometimes you get hosed. Sometimes you get the benefit of the doubt, and I thought the Jazz got away with. I don't understand how they didn't grant the timeout. I mean, the timeout seemed pretty obvious to me, running down the floor, yelling timeout and signaling for it, but they just ignored that. So,
well, it was twice. Once when they got the rebound, initially when they got the rebound, and then the second one, like maybe 1 or 2 dribbles up the floor.
Correct.
And if they had called that timeout after Ingram had taken his dribble, New Orleans would have been screwed, because they would not have been able to advance the ball. They would have had to take the ball out. They would have had to inbound the ball where Ingram called the timeout, because he had already tried to advance it.
Yeah, but my point is, why didn't they give either one of those times? That's the bigger question for me, not where the ball is.
Because Kane Fitzgerald is trash, and his officiating crew was trash last night. And every Kane Fitzgerald officiated game turns in to the anarchy that you saw last night. He is absolutely one of the worst officials I have ever seen.
Yet he is consistently graded highly by the NBA.
I have no idea how. I have yet to see a Kane Fitzgerald game where I come away from it and I'm like, that was a really good, that was a well-officiated game. It's just always, like what happened last night, and we call it controversial, that's every single Kane Fitzgerald game that I've ever seen. It just turns into a clown show. And that's exactly what it turned into last night.
What are your sources telling you about the progress Mike Conley's making on healing that hamstring up?
He's making progress. That's why he didn't come on the road trip, because they're ramping him up a little bit. There's still no definitive timetable on when he returns, but they want to make sure that he is sound and healthy. He's a lot better than he was. The Jazz, the winning has bought them a little bit of time. Has bought them a little bit of time to make sure that he's sound and make sure that he's healthy, so that there's no relapse. But the fact that he did not go on the road trip was a good thing, because it meant that they were able to kind of ramp up his rehab a little bit and try to get him back and try to get him into the lineup and get him healthy again.
With an injury like a hamstring, you'll ease a guy back in. Is there any thought to monitoring his minutes and maybe bringing him in with the second unit when you bring him back?
No, he's going to be in the starting lineup. No, he'll probably have a minutes limit, but he'll be in the starting lineup. I don't foresee them bringing Mike Conley off the bench. He's too important to what they do.
Not even just easing him back in for 5 or 6 games, getting him back up to speed again.
Yeah, I don't foresee that. I mean, I don't have intel definitively one way or the other on that, but I don't see that.
What's the downside to it?
Well, I think with a guy like Mike Conley, I mean, when he's healthy, he gets his spot back. That's basically what it is. I mean, it's like if Donovan Mitchell gets hurt, when Donovan Mitchell gets healthy, Donovan Mitchell goes back to the starting lineup.
Yeah, but with that, and I'm just simply saying he won't have played for a month and a half. He's got a hamstring injury. His cardio won't be where it needs. Game cardio won't be where it needs to be. What's the downside to bringing the guy off the bench as a role with the second unit, playing him 22, 23 minutes for a handful of games before he gets all that stuff back again?
Yeah, I just don't think it's a conversation that the organization's having. So if that's not something that the organization is thinking, then why should we talk about that? Because to me, like the way I see it, if Rudy Gobert gets hurt, Rudy Gobert gets his spot back. If Mike Conley gets hurt, Mike Conley gets his spot back. Now, if it's Jordan Clarkson or somebody else, then that's a different story.
Well, yeah, but I'm not advocating somebody's taking his spot, though.
No. What I'm saying is, if somebody like Mike Conley gets hurt, the minute he comes back, he gets into the lineup. Now, like I said, I haven't had that conversation with the organization, but that's just how I see it, and that's how I think. From what they think of him, I don't foresee them even for a game bringing him off the bench. What I foresee is they'll stagger his minutes with Donovan Mitchell, and they'll get him some time running with the second unit. I'm almost for sure that when he comes back, he's probably going to be on a minutes limit, at least initially. But no, when Mike Conley comes back, I don't foresee Mike Conley not being in the starting lineup. I foresee him being in the starting lineup, and he's the starting point guard, just like what he is. He's too important to what they do. They foresee him as being too important to what they do, and see him as too good a player for them to bring off the bench. So I don't think that's even a conversation that the organization's having.
Jazz have gotten pretty fat and happy off some lesser competition. Maybe save that game against the Clippers. Do we make any judgments about winning 9 of 10 and 6 in a row here, or is it still too soon to know how much progress they've made?
Well, I think that's a good question because I actually wrote about this a little bit last night. I think so. The Jazz have won 11 and 12. They're 24 and 12. They were 13 and 11. They've won 11 and 12. 10 of those 11 wins are against teams under 500. So what it says to me is that they're a very good team because even the good teams, above average teams would have dropped one by now. Even good teams probably would have dropped one by now. That win last night, obviously New Orleans is 12 and 25, but that win last night was impressive. That was Utah's fifth night on the road. That was their third game. That was the last of a 3-game trip. They had no legs to defend. New Orleans was making everything. Brandon Ingram dropped 35. The pace was ridiculous. New Orleans really pushed pace. They really made the Jazz play faster than they wanted to. And the Jazz still figure out a way to come out with a win. That was an impressive win because I think that even a month ago, the Jazz would have lost that game, and I think they would have lost that game pretty handily. So obviously the Clipper win was a great win. I think the New Orleans win was a really good win. I think the Orlando win was a good win. Orlando's playing well right now. I think if you look on paper, you can say, 10 of those 11 were, against below 500 teams. The Jazz are just doing what they're supposed to do. But I think if you look a little closer, I think that there are a couple of impressive wins in there. I think Orlando was impressive. Obviously, the Clippers was impressive, and I think the New Orleans was extremely impressive given the circumstance.
Jazz and NBA insider from The Athletic, Tony Jones, making his way back from New Orleans today. Will Kyle Kuzma be a Laker in April?
It's a good question. Do you think he will?
I don't know. It looks like they're entertaining trade offers for him. It's not one source. It's multiple sources talking about it, and sources usually get information from agents or front offices, so it sounds like LeBron, the GM, might be wanting to make some moves, and Kuz might be the guy.
I would be kind of hurt for Kyle if on one hand, I'd be kind of sad for him if he got traded. On the other, I think it'd actually be kind of good for him if he got traded. Knowing Kyle right now, I think he wants to get paid in his second contract. I think his value is kind of plummeting a little bit, for a potential second contract. Now he's going to get a second contract, but he's somebody, he wants that second contract to be able to set himself up and set his mother up for the rest of their lives. And I think that, even last year, or the year before, he was looking at a pretty hefty second contract. And right now, he's coming off the bench. He's not really fitting. It's not that he's not fitting with LeBron. I think he fits with LeBron. I don't think he fits with Anthony Davis because the Lakers have been so good with Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee at the 5 that they haven't had to play Anthony Davis at the 5. So now they're having to play Kyle Kuzma at the 3 when he's playing on the floor with Anthony Davis. And Kyle's not an NBA 3. He's an NBA 4. So there's some fit issues with the roster that were probably a little bit unforeseen in the summer when the Lakers made all of those moves because, in the summer we thought that Anthony Davis would play a lot of 5 and Kyle would play a lot of 4. I think the injury hurt him. It hurt his ability to integrate with the roster and be in the starting lineup right off the bat. So So I'm not sure it'd be the worst thing in the world if he did get traded to a situation where he could kind of be, where he could kind of showcase a lot more of his individual game. Do I think it'll happen? I'm not sure, but I do think, I do think the Lakers front office leaks. So I do believe the sources.
Yeah, where there's smoke, there's probably a little fire.
Yeah, where there's smoke, there's a little fire. There are organizations that leak. There are organizations that don't leak. The Lakers organization is one of the organizations that leak. So, especially with Sam Amick. Sam Amick has a lot of good sources in the Laker organization. So I do think that there's at least some talk about seeing what they can get for Kuzma. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Will Kevin Love be a Cavalier in April?
If the Cavs have anything to do with it, the answer is no. But the question is, who's going to trade for that contract?
Correct.
In those years. And now, Kevin's had two separate temper tantrums.
Well, he apologized for the one this morning. He came out and said he screwed up, and he apologized for it.
Yeah, the one, I don't – look, you signed the contract, dude. Like, if you didn't want to be there and you didn't want to be there through through that rebuild, don't sign a 4-year max. Sign a 1-and-1. He had every ability to sign a 1 year and a player option contract. And he signed a 4-year max. Now he's one of the highest paid players in the game. He's not in his prime anymore. So he's going to have to deal with that. So, I think there are some trades out there. It's going to be a little bit, it'll take some working. So I do think that eventually, he'll get traded. But, when you're making $30 million a year and you had the ability to control the years on your contract, and you sign a long-term deal like Kevin Love did, then, you signed the deal. You had control over your career, and you chose the long-term deal.
So do you think somebody will make the move to get him, though? He's still productive.
I think so. I think at the end of the day, I think so. It doesn't make sense to trade him into a non-winning situation. So, it makes sense to trade him to Portland. But they're going to have to figure out a way to match the money, because if you trade him to Portland, you don't want to trade him for Dame or CJ. Well, you're not trading him for Dame, and you don't want to trade him for CJ. So, the question is, does Cleveland want Hassan Whiteside back? So that's what Cleveland has to ask themselves, and maybe they do, because Hassan Whiteside is an expiring deal right now, so they can get off a whole bunch of money. So maybe, Kevin Love for Hassan Whiteside in a first-round pick. Maybe that works.
He is, by his own terms, an elite rim protector.
Good Lord. He's a terrible defender. Don't get me started.
Well, that's not what he says. I'm just telling you what he says.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. How you been, man? You abandoned me over the holidays.
I didn't abandon you. You filled in for me.
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
I don't get 2 months off in the summertime like you do. I had to take my vacation where I could.
That was uncalled for.
I don't have that athletic NBA lifestyle you've got.
I'm up here dragging. I'm about to come home and be home for 3 days after being away for 6 days. You know what my wife told me yesterday? When I told her I'd be gone next week.
No more amaretto sours?
No, she said, well, it's just going to be me and the girls like it always is. It's like, oh, gosh. I was like, yeah, I got to do something nice for her.
Do something nice. Take your nap on the plane. Be present for the girls when you get home. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Hey, I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, my guy.
Thanks, Tony. Tony Jones.